Sorry for the interruption. We have some technical issues. So, Zaki, if you can continue with everything.
Yeah. Let me go back with the case again. I'm just trying to share the screen. Now, unfortunately, I think we were not able to continue because of certain internet connectivity issues. I'm just restarting from the World Bank and the Economic Forum rankings so that people who would have lost the flow of discussion would be able to catch up again. The case on hand that we had is there is a whole lot of e-governance that's happening across the world. And as you know, Dubai has been one of the cities, or UAE has been one of the countries which has always wanted to be on its top. And you know very well today in the market that it is one of the destinations that anybody would like to be in. And I've been fortunate to be part of its making. The country has given me a lot in terms of learning, in terms of experience, in terms of what I have achieved, of what I have been today. In terms of that, let's look at how the World Bank, the United Nations started ranking UAE versus other countries, because this is a normal UN e-government survey which happens, where Korea has been identified as the first ranking and a star performing nation. Singapore was in the 12th position. Bahrain moved from the 42nd position to the 13th position. There's a lot of analysis that we can do on why these countries are doing e-governance. It's primarily because they'd like to have those resources and the investments to be attracted in their countries versus the other countries, having a business beneficial situation being created. Accordingly, there's also a ranking that happens on the governance of municipalities. And of that ranking is where the municipality of Dubai had a ranking of 27 and 29 in subsequent years, 2007 to 8, 2008 and 2009. Now, if we look at how these rankings affect us versus those countries in the race, there's a very different denomination of discussion that happens. India, having so much of resources, is having its own problems in how it goes about addressing its necessity for change, versus other governments across the world looking at how they would like the change to come by. Precisely for this reason, if you look at it in this screen, you have Denmark and Sweden placed #1 in the municipality rankings, while New Zealand is at the 22nd position, Qatar at the 29th position, and Saudi Arabia at the 40th position. There are dynamics in managing governments, in managing a whole lot of flux in the situation of governance, but at the end of the day, the citizen needs what needs to be provided him for the taxes that he pays versus the realization of services that happens through the municipalities. Accordingly, the mandate that we had was to achieve the goals and objectives of the service portfolio under having better service delivery, having an internal efficiency, and having a community of participation. Like I explained a little while earlier, the project portfolio management is a subset of the entire service portfolio of a given government or a municipality. In this particular scenario that we're looking at, every portfolio has certain set of operations through which you transition the services or you retire the services. And over a given period of time, new services get designed and bring in continual improvement of those services through the pipeline of those activities. as they interact with the customers and the consumers, there's a common pool of resources that gets implied in how the service delivery operation is taken care of, which is where we get to know the return on assets from the service operation, the kind of revenue that is generated to keep these continual service improvements to keep happening. The methodology that we had used to deploy portfolio management was identifying certain set of criteria where the portfolio prospectives are identified and get evaluated. We denoted certain weightages to each perspective and had scoring questions being created. And these scoring questions were finally the mechanism that drove each perspective in the way it finally got scored. The scores were then used to define the priority of the projects and help in selection of the final list. Now, excuse me, going back to the strategic plan that I talked about, it's essential to look at it that we have a huge set of clear standardized strategy charts being created. Just a moment, I'm trying to share that sheet. It's being a little difficult for me to get there. Just a moment, please. I'm unable to get that screen in place. Yep, we have it here. So, bit minimizing. Yeah, this strategic document that shows, I mean, this document is a public document. You can actually go and download that from the website of the government of Dubai Municipality. And you can have a look at it in very detailed introspection of what it means and how these were done. But let me just take you through the view that we had at that point in time. The strategic directions are given as 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the top line, where we have certain specifics being defined on how these strategic directions will be deployed based on the departments that get involved. The departments are defined in yellow, which is below these numbers, and the numbers that you have, for example, in the box number 1 on your right hand side, you would see 2, 15, 25, 27, 30, 39 are the clauses under which these departments get involved on deploying such activities. Now let me just turn this window and see if I'm able to rotate the view. Page display, would I be able to rotate it? Rotate the view. Yep. So that makes it much easier for us to read. Urban development in the Emirate of Dubai. I mean, that's a large activity, a huge, huge activity. How do we do that? Is we associate with planning department and with the Department of Surveys and with the Department of Geographical Information. Now, when activities have to be done between these departments, there's a need of a workflow which has to be created. And these workflows were custom designed for having that strategic decision being taken care of under the directions. Accordingly, we had identified the perspectives on how we would go by and do the evaluation of portfolio management and the cycle of its events. Going back again, looking at the enterprise strategic intent, having the enterprise objectives identified, making sure that the strategic business unit and its entities being defined, looking out for the critical success factors, looking out for the requirements and connecting it with the enterprise architecture of the entire organization, having key performance indicators and a balanced scorecard created out of that. Do a discovery process of the portfolio, define the programs and the projects that happen to manage the portfolio, start identifying the assets which get delivered out of the portfolio, and do an asset transformation to have achieved matured concepts in newly modified areas. The benefits that we derived, like I mentioned, was to establish structured reference for the performance of ID planning and portfolio management. We derived traceability and demonstration of business alignments. We compiled the Director General's requirements in terms of establishing the practices for well-defined methodologies. We defined a roadmap of initiatives of business transformation requirements and the technology evolution imperatives, and achieved the process of portfolio management. I mean, going back to the understanding of where we started off, we have the entire understanding of why we do governance and how portfolio management could assist doing governance is when we have these thresholds being defined where certain sets of decisions are taken care by traditional decision making while the others are done by governance-led decision making. That's when we achieve the business strategy alignment with governance and with portfolio management. And I think that should be the end of the presentation for us. I'm back to Akhilesh.
Thanks, Zaki. If you can remove the presentation and join us live.
Yep. Am I back?
So, yeah, yeah. So thanks a ton, Zaki. It was really nice listening to you. I'm sure some of our viewers must have some good takeaways from your entire presentation. So we have a couple of questions coming up. So most of the questions are basically around e-governance because there's with the new government coming in place, we have a lot of discussion about e-governance.
Right.
So the question number one is like, what are the learnings which can be implemented in India? Because you are back in India also, and you've seen the present situation here. Right?
Very true. I mean, I've been back in India, and I've been associated here with an organization which is working on a lot of government projects, a company based out of Ahmedabad, Sai Infosystem. And I have been part of certain projects like the project on NME ICT, National Mission for Education, about 320 universities being associated on an education network. I've been also on a project of Department of Post, which is 180,000 location deployment of Finacle, an application for microfinance, managing the financial aspects of our post offices. These projects, like I said, have been large enough where we are able to understand the magnanimity and the intricacies of having so many people coming out to do these projects. Now, at the end of the day, these projects I don't see getting to end. I mean, which is what does not happen when you probably have a proper portfolio management being done, because you know what kind of benefits that you need to achieve out of each project, and that starts getting deployed at a smaller level and gets scaled at a multiple larger project level. These experiences of projects that I have had in India has itself given me a perspective of the different scenarios that are present in UAE versus how it is done in India, largely because of the population, largely because of the change in environment, largely because of the expectations of people at the helm of affairs, and the percolation of information that needs to happen to the last level. For example, in the project of deploying that 180,000 locations of Department of Post, there were 7 aspects of the project being managed, 7 different companies, and we all had several different ideas on how this needs to be deployed. Other than having a tender being created and the tender being floated in the market, the government was not able to do anything more in bringing across all the constituents of this project on one table and having a discussion. This never happened. So we were all under separate areas where we are thinking that this project domain belongs to us and this is how we execute. But when we go out and reach that level of coordination, and a central project management activity was missing. That's precisely what we need to bring in for how these need to happen. Primarily, I mean, if you look at it, there has been a change in the governance scenario today. We have a new prime minister, and this has come through a large majority, which itself is in a mandate on doing and delivering the activities in the right manner. So I believe versus the earlier business of the government and the today's business of the government, there will be much more, I would say, uh, there will be much more control in decision making than having it done earlier. And that would be very important for such projects to succeed.
So coming to another question, sir, what are the main challenges to implement e-governance project in places where IT appreciation is non-existent?
Well, India is a very good example for that. We have been producers for long, but we've not been consumers. And that's precisely where the difference comes in, because being a consumer, we know how these implications of IT assist or support the utilization of such services. I mean, there has been a very good advent of technology today. There's been a lot of smartphones being there in the market. So there is a need for governance. There's a need of uh, making e-governance being available. But I'm sure at the level of the government, there are many more activities that they have on which they need to be juggling between which are the ones to prioritize. And precisely where I believe portfolio management would help in making sure that they are able to equally address the governance necessities of a young generation versus the needs of an older organization like the earlier India. And I'm sure the new government can make a lot of differentiation in getting that space.
We have already seen a lot of e-governance project already implemented in India. Like they tried to implement it, but it was partially successful, I would say. So,
Mm-hmm.
what can be done from the Indian perspective? Like maybe because you said India is a huge, there's a huge population out there, and the outreach of project is also very huge. So shall we break it into small pieces,
It needs to
or
be.
do it, or how we can do it?
I mean, this is precisely how it is. I mean, for example, I'll give you a discussion that I was there about a week back on a business intelligence scenario where I presented a case to a certain set of business analysts, and I told them that I have X number of databases and X number of information and so and so so and so so and so. So why don't you impress upon me on how you do a deployment? I mean, these guys jumped around saying that we will, integrate all databases, we will integrate everything, and we will bring out a very nice business intelligence desktop for you so that you're able to make better decisions. That's precisely where we go wrong. I mean, you cannot start integrating everything together at one shot. You have to divide it into smaller pieces, make people owner of those small areas, and give them the mandate to achieve that percentage of success that would go back getting the pyramid way of accumulating into a tall order of success. If that is not the case and we want to do a big order of deployment, I do not think that we would be able to achieve it as successful or a significant success out of that. And that's precisely when we need to break it to smaller portions, get those things working, then start uniting them. I mean, was my answer right? I mean, would you
Yeah.
want to?
Uh, yes. So one more question we have. That's the last question of the day, and
Mm-hmm.
that's uh, so. What are the top five high points for Dubai administration, technology or e-governance wise, that could be implemented in India without incurring restructuring in the back end?
Yeah, I don't think we need to do a lot of restructuring, but we only need to own up to the responsibility and the accountability of what work we are doing. I think that's more important. The laws and the methodologies of governance are all available in the constitution that we have and the governance methods that we have. It's only that people are very relaxed. They do not want to be accountable and they do not want to deliver or complete a given scenario. I do not think it's about money, it's about getting it done.
Thanks a ton, Zaki. It was really nice listening to you. As far as I can make out, e-governance is not just all about putting IT infrastructure in place or maybe uh, adding a lot of things over, adding a lot of computers over. So there's a lot of planning and financial calculations are also required.
Very true, very true.
So, thanks a ton. Thanks everyone for listening to us. Please write us at
Thanks for
ETCI, join at etci.com to participate in ETCI knowledge series. Thanks.
thank you for the invitation and thank